now salutes the heroes.
Our next guest today is Commander Nitin Anandrao Yadav. Shaurya Chakra. He has an incredible story of another situation, and I want the next film to actually tell the story. But here is when it starts, I'm told. You were on a sortie to do surveillance for an enemy warship and flying an IL-38. You were in an incredibly dangerous situation. When all power generators fail all at once, you had a battery which would last 15 minutes. What happened after that? Let's see your story. Let's see the story of Commander Yadav.
Life is wrought with unpredictabilities when you are a naval pilot out on a mission. Commander Nitin Anandrao Yadav has one gritting story to tell.
These are 8 generators, 4 alternators, couple of batteries, 4 batteries. This is our electrical system. We lost this complete system. When the engines are malfunctioning, we won't be warned in advance that be ready for this. The oil pressure, oil temperature, the fuel pressure, everything had exceeded the limit, and any time the engines could have caught fire and the aircraft would have been up in flames.
Despite the serious system failure, Commander Yadav managed to land the aircraft with 7 other crew members back to safety.
It was a big sigh of relief. But till that time, since we were into that complete emergency thought processes, only after we touched down and the aircraft came under control, and when we saw all the gauges, nothing is available with us, then it dawned upon us that what we've handled is one of the rarest of the rare things.
Awarded the Shaurya Chakra for this act of courage, this is the story of a brave heart, a hero for the naval force.
Aviation has its own challenges, and in Yadav's case, we are talking of a reconnaissance aircraft which was flying at 12,000 feet in rather extreme weather, and then he had a total electrical failure on board, and it then revolved around him to muster the remaining systems that were operational on board and to bring the aircraft back safely, and of course save the lives of the crew that he had. And in such cases, when you find everything falling apart, it requires firstly tremendous professionalism. It requires extreme calm state of mind to be able to think rationally.
When it comes to issues related with flying, I'd like to ask Air Chief Marshal Major, sir, if I remember correctly, you too had received a Shaurya Chakra for doing something exceptional in flying. I'm not aware of your citation, but maybe you could throw some light vis-a-vis Commander Yadav's act and how you see that as a pilot and as a decorated pilot.
To start with, he flies the IL-38s, and IL-38s are pretty old aeroplanes as far as I know. Typically a conventional old aircraft. And to have an electrical failure in a heavy transport aircraft is a difficult situation. And with a total electrical failure, like he very correctly said, nobody can see you, nobody knows where you are, you cannot communicate. You have limited time on your battery, and a wise decision of lowering the undercarriage when the battery is available, and then finding your way 600 miles or 300 miles, as he said, staying clear of all other traffic, and putting that aeroplane down safely is indeed an act of valor. And for which, yes, we should say that the emergency was handled so well by you and your crew. And I would say well done.
Thank you. Commander Yadav.
As far as
yes.
what you're talking about, that was what was known as the Timber Trail Rescue, where I had done this rescue along with a team to pull out 11 people from a cable car hanging at 3,000 feet in a valley near a place called Parvanu in Himachal Pradesh. And I must mention that while it took us overnight, this was one rescue operation where we couldn't pull out all 11 people in the evening, because we got the call in the evening, and I was commanding a base when I took this team there. So we still left 5 people in that dangling cable car, which could have, fallen off any time. But I must mention that, in this country we talk a hell of a lot about jointmanship. And this mission could not have been possible excepting for a great guy by the name of then Captain Crasto.
IJ Crasto.
I don't know, I think he's left the army now.
He's
This boy did something which was absolutely mind-boggling. Because we had to put a winch cable about 60 meters down from the helicopter through another 3 cables which are holding the entire cable car system. And Crasto was the first to volunteer. He says, I'll go down because the guys in that cable car will not have the guts to climb on top of the roof by themselves. He went down and one by one he put those people on the winch, strapped them on the winch, and we pulled them out. But what was amazing was, since we couldn't pull out anyone, he volunteered to stay back with those 5 passengers overnight.
Incredible.
And next morning, we brought the rest out. It was a very unique operation.
Incredible.
Of rescuing, including 2 small children who were strapped onto their parents to be pulled out. Thank you.
If Colonel Crasto is seeing this today, he would be so proud as well of your having remembered that. Commander Yadav, let me come back to you. You are in this situation. You are in this huge plane, IL-38. I mean, it looked quite big to me. And it's flying for almost 40 years, I'm told, in this country.
Yes.
This is not happening. This kind of situation, I'm told, has never happened in the world. You have no warning indications, you have no navigation, you have very limited control over your engines. I am told that your oil temperature and pressure is way beyond permissible limits, which means you are flying in a ticking time bomb. Not only could you have crashed, it could have just burst into flames. How did you keep your nerve and decide what was the right thing to do?
To start with, the biggest point of concern for me was this oil temperatures which had crossed the limit. We were, as you covered rightly, so we were ticking time bomb, and time was such that, as it was shown in the film also, it was a pre-monsoon weather conditions. There are no visible horizons available which you generally use to fly with, and flying over sea hundreds of miles where the sea and sky merged together was even more challenging. So to maintain that coolness and calmness was my first worry, because if my voice quivers or something, all my 8 aircrew who were there with me, it was a perfect teamwork, which because of which we came back.
What did you tell them?
In fact, to start with, when we lost our battery, we had to scream at each other, because that's how we can communicate, because there was no intercom also available on board. But I was telling them, okay, airspeed is under control, altitude is being maintained, oil pressure and temperature I didn't mention to them. The biggest worry for me was the moment I came over the land, because we used a compass which is as big as the size of a 1 rupee coin. And whatever navigation which we did from 300 miles to get back to the base, I first pulled out my mobile when we came over our Karwar base. I deliberately steered away from Dublin because it was the peak afternoon when about 10 flights land in a matter of 2 to 3 minutes. So along with us, there will be hundreds of lives at stake. On the mobile, I informed Dublin ATC that we are under such an emergency. And a matter of few minutes, the airfield was prepared for an emergency landing like this. The biggest worry for me during the landing, the emergency had not ended by reaching Dublin. We were around 18 tons heavier than the max permissible landing. Speeds were exceptionally high because flaps are not available. Fuel in excess of 18 tons. No control over engines and no flight instruments. Communication mobile. Somebody else is communicating for me. So on landing roll, moment we touched down, in fact it had to be a correct touchdown, weather conditions, pre-monsoon conditions, gusty events, and moment the aircraft came under control, I can't even switch off the engines. So the last possible resort was using pneumatic means to switch off the engines and control the aircraft on the runway. Hydraulics not available. So using whatever we've been trained for to get the aircraft under control.
Well, you're a flying James Bond. I can say, for what you've done. And not only did he save the lives of 8 crew members on board with this act of valor, Commander Nitin Yadav. Thank you for coming. Big round of applause. Big round of applause for Commander Nitin Yadav. Our next guest is Captain Vikrant Deshmukh, Kirti Chakra recipient for an anti-infiltration encounter near the LOC. The most important thing I'd like to say before we see the film on Captain Vikrant Deshmukh is that he walked almost a kilometer with a tremendous wound to reach his rescue team. It's an incredible story of taking valor to new heights. Here's the story of Captain Vikrant Deshmukh.
A call of duty and a close combat. Even after being convulsed by a bullet attack, his rock-solid will sailed him through the incident.
I spotted one of the terrorists firing and moving towards the Nala in order to escape. Immediately I opened fire and killed him. The second terrorist, who was just behind the first terrorist trying to escape, spotted me and started firing at me. I took cover behind this tree and fired at him and killed him.
He is very young in service, and he's done exceedingly well in the courses, and as I brought out earlier, he's made a special place for himself in the heart and minds of the people.
Captain Vikrant Deshmukh's tryst with infiltrators was an ultimate test of nerves. Awarded with a Kirti Chakra for this act, this young officer of the Indian Army is an inspiration for others.
The type of terrain in which this operation was carried out was extremely difficult. They were on a wooded hill. They had to negotiate things, and in this, where the terrorists were trying to sneak in, he carried out this operation. And there again, he, unmindful of his own injuries, carried on ensuring that this operation succeeds. He had a fall, yet that did not deter him and did not allow him, or he did not allow himself to be taken by that particular adversity. I think it is another effort which needs to be lauded as the award that has gone to him.
Captain Deshmukh, tell me, this is something we only see in the movies. I think no Hindi film hero can actually do it, what you've done. You were hit in the abdomen, you were shot at by the terrorists. After that, after getting that bullet injury, you managed to gun down 2 terrorists. You slipped and you fell down a steep cliff during this firefight, and then you walk almost a kilometer to reach the rescue team. I want you to take us and all our viewers through what was going on in your mind during those moments.
Initially I was there in other temporary operating base. So I was called by my adjutant that there was a int received that some terrorists are trying to infiltrate through our area. So as soon as I got the call, I was very excited because this was what I was looking for. Then once I went to my battalion headquarters, my adjutant briefed me. I was there with my Ghatak platoon. He, along with the CO security, we started after being briefed by him and the commanding officer. We reached over there where we had got the location where they were trying to infiltrate. Once we reached to the roadhead, we saw a trail coming to the road and going back as if somebody had just recceed the area. So the telltale signs were quite prominent. Yes, there is some presence over there. So me, led by my adjutant and 8 other ranks, started to follow the trail. Initially it was almost for 10 meters it was a straight line, and then it went down the spur, and then it started coming up. And so we followed it, and the area where it took place, the ingredient was almost 80 to 85 degrees. So it was quite a steep climb, totally covered with hilly region, and the dense undergrowth was so much that hardly the visibility was 3 to 4 meters. So again, as we were climbing up, the terrorists were sitting up on top of us, and the first person, who is the guide, he spotted them and just indicated, and as soon as he indicated, the firefight started. The initial firefight itself, I was hit in the abdomen, so I applied the first field aid and just tightened up my belt over it so that the bleeding could be reduced. And once that happened, I just saw, because the terrorists couldn't escape up, because we had our posts just 200 meters above it. So all they had to do was to run to the right or to the left, and using the nala and the growth, the vegetation over there. So I spotted the first terrorist just trying to escape over there. So I fired at him and I eliminated him. Just behind him, the second terrorist was also trying to do the same thing. He spotted me firing at him, and he was also trying to escape. So he fired at me. I just took cover under a tree just next to me. I fired at him. Luckily, I could kill him. After that, the terrorists sitting up, they fired. In that firefight, 3 of my men, they also got injured, and they also lobbed grenades. Because of the impact of the grenade, I fell almost 50 meters down. This happened somewhere in around 1800 hours in evening 6 o'clock. After that, I was there without my weapon. When I fell, without my weapon and the Motorola, so there was no communication over there. I waited till 12 o'clock. The pain was getting intense and the cold was also severe. I just thought, because there was no one around me, I just thought, okay, if I sit over there, there was no point sitting over there. I have to give myself a chance. Okay? Instead of sitting and dying over there, I just thought, okay, I'll have to walk. Whatever happens will happen, but I can't just sit over there. So I started walking around 12 o'clock in the night. After walking for an hour, my adjutant along with my rescue party came. The voice contact was established. He called out my name. I just answered him, and then from there we walked another 2 hours